This episode of the Feed Podcast is brought to you by the Chicago French Market. The market offers fresh ingredients for cooking at home, delicious grab-and-go options for any meal of the day, or even a simple picnic or office party.
The Chicago French Market, a taste of Europe in the heart of the Midwest.
Feed Podcast is brought to you in part by United Healthcare.
They offer a range of unique programs, things like Real Appeal, a weight loss program for a full year at no additional cost. More information, go to uhc.com/benefits.
You're listening to the Feed Podcast. Get the inside scoop by following us on Twitter at the Feed Podcast.
This episode of the Feed also brought to you in part by Modelo Especial and Modelo Negra for 21 and older only. Please serve responsibly. Modelo Especial and Modelo Negra beers imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois. So this is a little bit of a different setup for us this week.
Wow, we're doing a chef challenge in front of hundreds of people here at New York Wine and Food.
And we're checking the sound, obviously. We're figuring that out.
To make sure that it's all good. No, it's a super exciting thing for me because I love doing the chef challenges in our test kitchen, but to be able to do it in front of a crowd is even more cool. And we've got like one of my favorite chefs in the whole wide world with us today here in New York, Tim Cushman.
And this is a guy who spent some time in Chicago.
Yes, this is a guy who spends a lot of time in Chicago. And we're happy to be joining each other here, I think, on the stage.
Why don't you set us up and read the intro today?
Coming up on today's show, a very specific beer challenge against the chef and owner of Oya in Boston and Corvina in New York City, as both he and I attempt to come up with an easy weeknight meal in 15 minutes or less using just a bottle of beer plus 5 extra ingredients that you can pretty much find anywhere. Stay with us. Dinner and a snap with something that you might already have in your fridge.
And this is the Feed Podcast. I'm Steve Dolinsky, a food and travel reporter at ABC7 in Chicago, the Chicago Tribune, and Canada's Globe and Mail.
And I'm Rick Bayless, the chef and owner of Chicago's Frontera Grill, Topolo Bampo, Choco, Leña Brava, and host of public television's Mexico One Plate at a Time.
And every week, the Feed takes a deep dive into the world of professional chefs, restaurateurs, food artisans, and drink experts, sharing their stories and uncovering their passion for food and drink. And that's not all. Rick and I are always traveling the globe for our jobs. We're eating, we are drinking, we are immersing ourselves in the local culture. And if we find something interesting along the way, you can bet it's going to find its way here to our James Beard Award-winning podcast. After earning a bachelor's degree in jazz and classical guitar from the city's renowned Berklee School of Music, Tim Cushman moved to California in search of musical success. As many aspiring musicians do, Cushman took a job in a restaurant. That was the start of what would become a culinary adventure around the world. He spent the next 30 years cooking around the globe in Japan, France, Thailand, Italy, Germany, Hong Kong, Mexico, and Taiwan. Wow. In that time, he also served for 7 years as corporate chef with Let Us Entertain You in Chicago, where he developed menus for the group's new concepts. Cushman opened Oya, a contemporary Japanese restaurant in Boston with his wife Nancy in 2007. They have another one here in New York at the Park South Hotel along with Covina. And Tim Cushman joins us today on stage. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Great to be here with Rick.
I love your t-shirt. I have to say that from the very beginning. It says umami tsunami. And I always think of your food as being an umami tsunami, so I'm glad you have it immortalized on a t-shirt.
I'm a huge fan of your food. When I was living in Chicago, the first week that Frontera opened, I went in and
30 years ago.
Yes, I had just moved from LA, and I was 7 years in LA, and I love the food. And my wife Nancy and I, on one of our first dates, I took her to Frontera.
And I hear it's an anniversary coming up.
Yes.
Right away.
Well, we just had, Nancy and I just celebrated our 15th anniversary, but we've been together for over 20 years. So.
Congratulations.
Well, it seems like your experience around the globe has really created all these different experiences, high-end sushi, Japanese, and you've also got Mediterranean at Corvina with the pizza. So tell me about how you fuse those.
Well, I try to keep them true, to what they are. So, New York and Boston is more modern, high-end tasting menus, fairly expensive. We have Hojoko in Boston, which is a Japanese tavern, so that's more everyday food. And Covina is more kind of California wood grilling. When I started out in LA, that's what my exposure was a lot of wood grilling and kind of what's happening today, and that was back in the early 80s.
2008 was a huge year for you. Frank Bruni called Oya the best new restaurant in the country. You got a Food and Wine Best New Chef that same year. You've been able to maintain that level of success.
Yeah, knock on wood. Never take anything for granted. We always tell our team, you have to climb the mountain every day. Accolades are great to get, but you have to do it every day. I'm sure, Rick knows all about that.
Oh, absolutely. But I have a question about all these different restaurants that you have. What ties them together, in flavor-wise?
Probably the umami tsunami. I like to make, I love food, all kinds of food, and I like to make food that I crave. And so we actually, at Covina, which is more of a California Mediterranean, we do incorporate some Japanese ingredients for the umami. For example, when we opened the restaurant, we had a steak and we made an au jus, so to speak. But the way we did it was took Wagyu fat and created a stock out of the Wagyu fat. We rendered the fat, browned it off, made a stock, and then we added porcini mushrooms, kombu, bonito flakes, a lot of umami-based things, but it didn't taste Japanese. So, but it's really just, I think, just more the flavor profiles where I like really nice, strong flavor, like Mexican food. Yes.
So I have a question about umami in Japanese food, because obviously you have had the experience with all of that. Tell me what are just for our listeners, what are the key ingredients that add umami in Japanese cuisine?
Well, I think umami in general, answering your question, in Japanese cuisine, umami is almost like it's a player. Say you have a basketball team. I'll go way back to the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. He made every player on their team better. So he was kind of the umami of that team. So I think that's what umami does as a flavor. It makes all the other players better.
That's for sure the first time Jordan's ever been compared to umami in a sentence, I think. All right, so Tim accepted our challenge this week using Modelo Negra as the main ingredient. He's still getting set up here on our stage, the New York City Wine and Food Fest. When we come back, we're going to see how he and Rick attempt to make an easy weeknight meal in 15 minutes or less, so stay with us.
Looking for a little extra side dish? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at The Feed Podcast.
Commuters have known this for some time, but over in the West Loop at the Ogilvy Transportation Center, there are more than 30 specialty vendors just waiting to feed you inside the Chicago French Market.
The market offers fresh ingredients for cooking at home, delicious grab-and-go options for any meal of the day, or even a simple picnic or office party.
Kevin Whittier with Wood Fire Counter, handcrafted chicken. We make smoked roasted chickens. Yeah, we have our Brussels sprouts with truffle oil and Parmesan cheese. We also have our Nola mac and cheese, which is our ode to New Orleans, Louisiana, that has Creole seasonings, turkey andouille sausage, and crawfish.
Have you seen the lines, by the way, over at the Aloha Poke over there? And there's like the Aloha Poke, there's a line, and then there's Fumare meats, and then there's, well, as you just heard the vendor, I mean, there's so much going on right now in that market. There's quite a lot to eat.
That's very exciting. I got to go over there and have some poke.
They've got two entrances, 131 North Clinton and 118 North Canal. And how about this? Covered parking is free for an hour with a $20 purchase.
Wow, that's great. They're open Monday to Saturday. You can also grab a bite and surf the internet since Wi-Fi is free. The Chicago French Market, a taste of Europe in the heart of the Midwest.
How crazy is it to think you can actually have your insurance company pay you to walk?
What?
Yes, they're going to pay you to walk. United Healthcare isn't crazy. They just want you to be healthy.
Oh, one of their new programs is called United Healthcare Motion, where members can earn more than $1,000 a year toward their health reimbursement account or health savings account just for walking.
I didn't even know I had a health savings account or a reimbursement account, but that would be a good thing. How do $0 copays sound?
Absolutely fabulous.
That would be nice. That's a nice advancement in society. Or pharmacy experience that offers more flexibility and less disruption.
Well, if your company works with United Healthcare, ask your friendly HR person about their programs, and if not, go tell them to switch today.
I'm going to tell mine. Call 877-233-2059 or go to uhc.com/benefits to get more information.
United Healthcare, a proud supporter of the Illinois Restaurant Association and committed to your good health.
You're listening to the Feed Podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday morning.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're here at the New York City Wine and Food Fest this week, coming to you from the Grand Tasting Pavilion at Pier 94, specifically in front of the Modelo food truck here, the Modelo Sabor. And Rick is going to explain how our ingredient challenge works with our guest today, Tim Cushman.
Okay, so I'm looking over all of the ingredients that Tim has here, and I think that he is fit into what our rules are. It's 5 other ingredients plus our selected ingredients, which obviously is the Modelo Negra for this particular challenge. You have 15 minutes to make something that you might want to serve for dinner, I hope. I'm not sure that I'm going to be doing that, but it depends on what night of the week it is, perhaps. But that's it. We just want our guests or our listeners to have the opportunity to see how you create flavor in a flash.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
There you go. All right, here we go. So Lisa is going to set the clock at 15 minutes, and we begin now. Okay, so 15 minutes to make something easy on a weeknight meal. Tim, what's your strategy? What are you going to make?
I'm making a version of steak sukiyaki, and in its simplest form, it's sautéed thin sliced beef with soy and sugar is its simplest form, but there's regional differences. So I'm going to do a variation on that theme. I'm going to use oftentimes sake is used, so I'm going to use the beer in place of sake to get some of the nutty, sweet notes that you might get from sake.
And Rick, what is your strategy?
Well, I'm going to do a melted cheese thing. Okay, that's why I said I'm not so sure it really qualifies so much as dinner. But I went to the farmer's market here this morning, and it was spectacularly beautiful. And I found some gorgeous red poblanos and some fresh, what would be pasilla chilies, the long skinny ones. But when they're fresh, they're called chilacas. So I'm going to put those with some onions, which is what you hear in the pan here, and melt some cheese with it. And well, let's just stop right there.
Okay, but the onions are for sure in the skillet right away because you got to soften those. Tim is just doing a lot of slicing. You're slicing mushrooms, you're slicing onions.
Yeah, slicing mushrooms, onions, fresh garlic, and I've got 2 different kinds of onions, sweet onions, whatever, Vidalia, green onions, and I have shiitake and cremini mushrooms.
Now, sukiyaki is typically like a Japanese kind of a hot pot done at the table, right? Kind of braising in some soy.
That's more shabu shabu because it's like Swiss. Where sukiyaki is usually done in a pan where it gets glazed. So it's not so much poaching it, so to speak, but it's more glazing it with a little liquid. So I'm kind of doing a combination of 2.
Rick, is this like a queso fundido or a queso flameado or something like that?
Yes, it's going to be like a queso fundido, but I'm actually going to make it softer than that. So it is actually something that you could put out for your guests if you're going to have them over. The one thing with queso fundido is that it always sets up quickly because it's just melted cheese. So you have to eat it instantly. This one I'm going to soften with a little bit of cream and cream cheese, which is going to make it a little bit more fluid, and I think it'll work really well.
What did you just add to the onions in the pan?
I added the red poblanos. Now, usually you would see me roasting and peeling, but we don't have any open flame here, so I can't do that. So I'm actually just sautéing them like you would a bell pepper.
Okay, and Tim is now slicing some garlic very carefully.
Yes. I'm just doing really thin sliced garlic because I want to be able to taste it, but not have it be like a hot raw chunk of garlic.
By the way, what type of mushrooms are you using? A shiitake?
Yeah, shiitake and cremini. And you can use any variety of mushrooms. And you can, if you're doing this at home, you can buy them pre-sliced, everything's supermarkets, everything's super prepared ahead of time.
Rick is now slicing another chile. This one is the green one. It's a long, narrow one.
A long, skinny one, and this is one that when it is completely ripened, it doesn't turn red, it turns dark brown. And when a chili turns dark brown, when you completely dry it, it will seem like it's black.
So you're just tossing that and you're getting a lot of color on the onions. You want those to get browned or just translucent? Or
I'm looking for these onions to be browned but still crispy. I want them to be noticeable, not caramelized and completely soft.
So Tim is now pulling some wax paper off of his steak. Tell me about this beef.
Okay, this is American Wagyu. As you can see, it's nice and marbled. It's similar to a short rib.
Sliced very thin, by the way, like almost if you're going to do karbi in Korean, it's a very thinly sliced.
Yes.
Did he say American Wagyu?
American Wagyu, yes.
Okay. So what grocery store do you buy that at?
Can you get that? I mean, for folks here listening, can you get American Wagyu anywhere?
Yes. Yes, actually a lot of supermarkets are starting to carry Wagyu.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you couldn't get Wagyu, what would be a good sub? Something with a lot of marbling and fat.
Good question. You can get some prime, prime beef. This place like Whole Foods carries dry-aged prime beef. Just any kind of fatty beef would work well.
Okay, but the key here is sliced very, very thin, it looks like.
Yeah, sliced thin. Any beef would work.
Okay. How are we doing on time, Lisa? We've got about 10 and a half minutes left, so we're almost a third of the way through.
Okay, so now I'm putting some mushrooms into this same mix. I've got a shiitake. When I was at the green market this morning, I found these really beautiful shiitakes and oysters, so I'm doing both shiitakes and oysters in my vegetable mix, my caramelized onions with the 2 chilies.
Tim now has got a really hot skillet. He started with butter. And that, I'm guessing, okay, that doesn't count. We don't count oil or butter, salt and pepper in our 5 ingredients that are extra. So you got butter, and now you're laying in these thin slices of really fatty Wagyu into the skillet, and you're kind of crowding the pan, but that's okay.
I want to crowd the pan. It's all layered out in one layer, and you want to do that so you can get color. If you pile it all together, some of the liquid will come out and it will start poaching it, and you won't get as much color on it.
This is also going to cook very quickly. So I was at first a little concerned you weren't putting anything in the skillet with 10 minutes to go, but because it's sliced so thin and all your vegetables are sliced very thin, it's going to go pretty quickly now, right?
Yes, and this isn't meant to cook rare. It's actually you cook it all the way through. So I'm just going to get a little bit of color on it, and then I'm going to move it to the side, and I'm going to add in some of the vegetables, and I'll start getting all the flavors going together.
And have you spent a lot of time in Japan? Because that cuisine can be so vast and wonderful.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Nancy and I and a few of our chefs just came back 2 weeks ago from a 2-week trip and ate at just to eat and drink in Japan.
You learn every time you go.
Oh, yeah, incredible. It's incredible. It's amazing. It's an amazing food city.
So let's talk about your skillet now. You've pushed all this beef to one side, and now you've got your onions on another quadrant.
Yes. So what I'm doing is vegetables will cook at different temperatures, and I want to get maybe a touch of color on them, but I don't want to. I added the mushrooms in because there's a lot of water, so I got to be careful how I layer them into the pan so too much water doesn't come out ahead of time.
I just saw Rick open up a bottle of beer. What is this?
Well, I have the Modelo Negra to pour into the pan. When I get the onions caramelized enough and the rest of the vegetables are soft, then I'm going to deglaze the pan with the Negra. Now, the one thing about Negra is it's made with caramel malts, so it's sweeter than the Modelo Especial, so it's going to add depth and sweetness to the pan. So I'm going to deglaze the pan with it in just a second.
So when you say deglaze, you're going to be scraping up the bits of the flavor that have come off the onions and vegetable?
Exactly. And then I'm going to reduce it until it's completely gone. I just want it to be a little tiny glaze in the pan. Then I'm going to add the dairy products.
So reducing it obviously lowers that volume of liquid, concentrates the flavor.
Concentrates the flavor. And it's one of the things that's really problematical with most beers is that when you add them to a dish and you reduce it that way, they come out very bitter because of the hops in the beer. But this is low hops, so it will just add sweetness.
Just under 7.5 to go. We're halfway through our 15-minute competition. You can see both chefs working pretty quickly with purpose. Rick has just added the liquid now, the beer, and he's going to take a swig. Why not? There's a lot of folks imbibing at this event, I should say. We're in a very large Pier 94 here. Every other booth has got some kind of alcohol, which is a lot of fun. It makes for a fun afternoon here in New York City.
There's a ton of food here, and I was just walking in. I was drawn to one booth after another, and I kept thinking, no, I got to stop eating because I got to get back to where we're going to tape this. So
back to Tim now. You've got you're adding the sliced garlic here at the end. It looks like the beef is almost cooked. So are the mushrooms and the onions.
Yes. So I added the garlic in. I'm just going to cook. I don't want to really brown that too much. I just want to cook it out so it's not raw.
I think a lot of people make a mistake. They add the garlic too early. They burn the garlic, and then you're done.
Correct. You always not always, but oftentimes the last thing that I add, just so that you don't burn it and you can get the right cooking temperature on it. And then I'm going to add half the green onions. I'll let that just cook for a second, and then I'll deglaze it, deglaze it with the beer, and I'll take a sip of the beer also, because Modelo is not just a breakfast drink.
And Rick has now rendered this dish impossible if you're lactose intolerant. What have you done to it?
So I put a little bit of cream cheese in there because cream cheese is what's going to hold it together. There's this natural gum in cream cheese that I find very useful in the kitchen. So melting it in with all the vegetables will kind of create a binder. Then I'm going to enrich it with just a little bit of cream, and then I'm going to melt the cheese into it.
Okay, we're coming up on 5 minutes to go, so we're 2/3 of the way through. 5 minutes. You're feeling good, Tim?
Great, yes.
You're good, okay. Rick has now added some of that cream?
The cream, and I'm just going to let it come to a simmer, and then I'll start melting the cheese into it.
You don't want to do the melting of the cheese too soon because it's going to set up?
Well, if I didn't put the cream cheese and the cream in here, then that would be a problem. But when you put the cream cheese and cream in it, it will stay soft for a long time.
Okay. Tim, just seasoned, it looks like salt and pepper?
Yeah, I did a little salt in the beginning, and now I just added a good amount of black pepper. I want the black pepper flavor to come out. Since we're only working with 5 ingredients, black pepper has a lot of depth, and it'll also add a little spice to it.
And when you're going to be reducing this beer, how long typically do you figure it's going to take to reduce to the glaze you want?
Depends on the heat of the pan and the oven you're using. Induction this is kind of cooled down now that the pan is full. So this will probably take a minute, but it really just depends on the width of the pan. If you're trying to do reductions, the wider the pan, the better. If you get a really small pan, it'll take you forever to reduce the liquid. But if you use a nice wide pan and you're trying to burn off wine or beer, it reduces really quickly and it speeds everything up.
Just under 4 minutes to go. Rick now slicing some chilies.
I'm just slicing up some more chilies, both the red poblanos and the chilaca chilies, to use as a garnish on the top.
Super cool that both of these guys have done completely different preparations here. You've got, obviously sort of Mexican, northern Mexico, and you've got Japan going on over here. Is this something you typically see like in El Paso or even northern Mexico?
Yeah, you find the queso fundido, queso flameado, you find it all over Mexico, but it's usually done in certain kinds of restaurants that feature the food of northern Mexico. The food that's like grilled cabrito and chorizos and machitos, all different kinds of meat preparations, and you would start your meal with a little queso fundido.
Tim just added, what did you add, a little beer or no?
No, I just added soy sauce. This is actually a soy sauce that we bring in from Japan. We have to ship it over by boat because it's too expensive to overnight it. So it's a 3-month process to get our soy in. But we've visited the soy maker in southern Japan, and they have these 200-year-old cedar vats that just sit out. There's no refrigeration. They're covered, but it's just all natural temperatures and everything. But we visited our soy maker.
Rick has just added his shredded, is that jack cheese? We've got about 2.5 minutes to go, guys. What did you add, Rick? Cheese.
So I got the cheese in here now, and I've got it over a high heat just because I'm trying to work quickly here, but usually at this point I would lower the heat. As soon as it starts to melt, I'm going to actually turn this whole thing off and just let the final bit of melting happen just with the residual heat of the pan.
And Tim now, with just about 2 minutes to go, has added the Modelo.
I added the beer, and now I have to have my breakfast drink.
A breakfast drink, okay. With those caramel malts, and that's going to reduce now for about a minute?
Yeah, that'll reduce down, and then I'm just going to finish it with a little piece of butter to create a emulsification, just get a little texture to the sauce.
Okay, we've got about 1.5 minutes to go. Rick now slicing. He's got 2 plates, so one presentation with chips.
Well, I didn't think that I could get up in front of this audience and just make nachos, okay? So I have to sort of...
They would rebel.
Actually, some people are saying I could actually get up here and just make nachos. But what I decided to do was to show how to use this beautiful cheesy sauce in another way. So you could use it. I just brought a rotisserie chicken, and you could serve it with rotisserie chicken. You could mix the chicken into the cheesy sauce and then toss it with pasta. It would make a great pasta sauce as well. So I'm just trying to save my reputation by not doing just
You've got 1 minute to go now. We've got 1 minute to go. You're both feeling good. Tim's just kind of tossing everything up. You're reducing the liquid here.
Yeah, just burning out, you want to burn out the alcohol out of the beer, which really just brings out the flavor of the beer.
Rick is now plating over the chicken, the rotisserie chicken, his beautiful cheesy chile combination. He's going over the nachos now, or the chips.
Yeah, this is looking a lot like drunk food right now.
Well, we got beer, why not? All right, and Tim has just added a little pat of butter to kind of finish this dish, add just a bit of richness.
I don't think I've made anything like this earlier than 11 o'clock at night in my life.
We got about 20 seconds to go here, so I'm guessing, so Rick is almost done here, 20 seconds to go. Tim, you're going to start plating or no?
I am.
He is, okay. We're going to be right on time. I'd love to see it come together here in 10 seconds to go. So easy to make 2 delicious dishes in 15 minutes or less. And we'll do a 5 and a 4 and a 3 and a 2 and a 1 as Tim finishes with his scallions. Let's hear it. All right. So what we're going to do first, because we have an Instagram account and a Twitter account, which is The Feed Podcast, we're going to take some photos. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to taste what Tim and Rick have made. Then we're going to preview some scenes from next week's show. So stay with us.
Check out previous episodes, get recipes from ingredient challenges, and see behind-the-scenes pictures at thefeedpodcast.com.
How crazy is it to think you can actually have your insurance company pay you to walk?
What?
Yes, they're going to pay you to walk. United Healthcare isn't crazy. They just want you to be healthy.
Oh, one of their new programs is called United Healthcare Motion, where members can earn more than $1,000 a year toward their health reimbursement account or health savings account just for walking.
I didn't even know I had a health savings account or a reimbursement account, but that would be a good thing. How do $0 copays sound?
Absolutely fabulous.
That would be nice. That's a nice advancement in society. Or pharmacy experience that offers more flexibility and less disruption.
Well, if your company works with United Healthcare, ask your friendly HR person about their programs, and if not, go tell them to switch today.
I'm going to tell mine. Call 877-233-2059 or go to uhc.com/benefits to get more information.
United Healthcare, a proud supporter of the Illinois Restaurant Association and committed to your good health.
Commuters have known this for some time, but over in the West Loop at the Ogilvie Transportation Center, there are more than 30 specialty vendors just waiting to feed you inside the Chicago French Market.
The market offers fresh ingredients for cooking at home, delicious grab-and-go options for any meal of the day, or even a simple picnic or office party.
My name is Josh Weisel. I'm the general manager here at BB's Kosher Deli. We're the only certified kosher deli in downtown Chicago. I'm the mashgiach here, a certified Jew on premises at all times when we're cooking, and that's how we have our certification. We have a pretty big following of non-kosher clients as well who come down here just because they like the pastrami and they know our sandwiches are the best around.
Have you seen the lines, by the way, over at the Aloha Poke over there? And there's like the Aloha Poke, there's a line, and then there's Fumare meats, and then there's, well, as you just heard the vendor, I mean, there's so much going on right now in that market. There's quite a lot to eat.
That's very exciting. I got to go over there and have some poke.
They've got 2 entrances, 131 North Clinton and 118 North Canal. And how about this? Covered parking is free for an hour with a $20 purchase.
Wow, that's great. They're open Monday to Saturday. You can also grab a bite and surf the internet since Wi-Fi is free. The Chicago French Market, a taste of Europe in the heart of the Midwest.
Looking for a little extra side dish? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at The Feed Podcast.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. We are on stage today at the New York City Wine and Food Fest in Pier 94 on the west side of the city, here with Chef Tim Cushman from Oya and Corvina. Challenge today was, how do you come up with something using Modelo Negra as the star, plus 5 other easy-to-find ingredients, and get a main dish on the table in 15 minutes or less? We're going to taste Tim's dish first. So we've got forks here. This is the beef sukiyaki. And I want to make sure I get some of the mushroom and some of the sauce as well, right?
I have to say, that sukiyaki is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. I got a chance to have it in Japan at a ryokan, and I will never, ever forget it. It was one of the most memorable meals of my entire life. I didn't think you could pull off something on a little induction burner here that would be half as satisfying as what I have, and you have. And I have to go home and make this now. One time I tried to make it, and I didn't even make it very well, and I took all afternoon to put it together. 15 minutes and it tastes that good? It's incredible. The Wagyu, I think, is one of the key ingredients.
Let's be clear. You need prime beef. You need something thinly sliced. There's quite a bit of fat in there for flavor.
Oh my
but again,
God.
when you reduce that beer, also you add some, like you said, the sort of the sweet caramely notes.
You do. You get the beer flavors coming through. You get the mushrooms. You get that incredible meat. You know how to cook, sir.
Thank you. I try.
And for the folks who've actually been so patient.
We're going to go from the sublime to the ridiculous here. Okay.
I want to tell everybody, by the way, who's watching us here at the festival, we are going to have samples for everybody to taste. So your patience will be rewarded. Okay, so what do we have here? A little drunk. 2 a.m.
2 a.m. I think cheesy is the optimal word here for this. And I'm not even going to show you that one over there. The one with the chicken breast sliced and all that. The one that's supposed to salvage my reputation for making nachos for you.
Okay, but I think obviously anybody can do the cheese part, but the chilies and the beer, that's where you're getting your complexity.
You are, and you got a little bit of onion, you got a little bit of mushroom in there. Mushrooms and beer, as you see, we both think alike there. Mushrooms and beer, when you saute mushrooms and deglaze it with beer, especially if the beer doesn't have a whole lot of hops in it, is super good. So that's what I kind of go to.
So that's the takeaway. So mushrooms and deglazing with beer?
And this is delicious. It's the cheese, too, it's full of umami. I mean, this is loaded with flavor. It's really super delicious. Yeah.
It is, and I think the cheese that you use has to be a good cheese for this. Yes, I cut it with some cream and cream cheese, but the flavor of the cheese is really important. Just like you bought Wagyu, I brought this amazing organic cheese that's made by this Amish farmer in northern Indiana that we use in our restaurant, and I thought that will pack the flavor in there that I'm looking for. So it's not the $1.99 a pound Monterey Jack that you can find in your grocery store. So cheese is important.
I got to say, as the layman, it was cool to see you guys both using something like this beer, which I've seen, and I've drunk by myself, but to actually see you use it in these recipes is very impressive. So big thanks to Tim Cushman for coming out today from Oh Yeah. Go see him in Boston, New York City, Corvina, New York City, The Roof, yes, Park South Hotel. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Love Rick's food, and thanks for having me.
And you owe everything to being in Chicago, right? All your experiences.
I do. Yeah, everything that has ever happened good to me happened in Chicago. Number one was meeting my wife, Nancy.
There you go. A wise man. All right. Big thanks to everybody here at the New York City Wine and Food Fest for watching, and thank you so much. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Coming up next week, how about a cookbook to give as a holiday gift?
So, it took me 20 years to get the energy up to actually do a cookbook, and when I did it, I wanted it to be a comprehensive history of the restaurant.
We talked to one of the authors of the new Publican Cookbook, while Steve talks to Gail Simmons about her new book. Then each of us share a few of our favorites from the past year. That's next week on the show. You can always contact us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at The Feed Podcast. Check out our ingredient challenges, get recipes and other information about previous shows by simply visiting our website, thefeedpodcast.com. And please subscribe and rate our show on iTunes. And be sure to follow me at Rick_Bayless.
And I'm at Steve Dolinsky. We are in the Apple Podcast section, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, pretty much everywhere. More information about Modernist Bread on our website as well. I produced today's show. Linnea Dominic's our intern. Max Dolinsky supervised today's music. Vero Craddock wrote and performed our theme song, and the Feed Podcast is edited by Matt Cunningham at Truthful Enthusiasm. Whether you're an individual or institution, get your story online with truthfulenthusiasm.com. Thanks for listening, everybody.